someone needs to commit to standing still for 45
that's
minutes,
tricky.
and I don't know
That's
that we have the talent here.
Well, someone start practicing. Like, let's go.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Off to Broadway, the podcast where we deep dive into anything and everything musical theater. I'm Tara.
I'm Stefania.
And in today's episode, we're talking all about Dead Outlaw. I actually, forgot that the bandana was part of this until 2 seconds ago, because when I made the playbill for the Tonys, the bandana is, not there.
It's not
I
there.
think it's an add-on.
I will say, I do think this playbill is ugly.
Oh, I like it!
I think it's ugly. I'm so sorry.
What do you not like about it? The bandana?
Yeah, I think it's kind of corny looking. And I didn't find the show corny at all. And I think, the guitar and the cowboy hats and the money bag and the bandana is just
it's giving you plot summary in this bandana.
It's a little corny looking. I don't know what I would do different, but not this.
Oh, interesting. I like it. I think it's kind of fun. Only because, maybe I've never seen a bandana used in, a show before that I'm just oh, bandana.
The first preview gift was bandanas.
I know.
And also, the stagehands all wore bandanas.
Yes, they did. Not red ones, though. They were, purpley, darker ones so that it blended in nicer. This is another review coming from us out of our New York trip. We will be going through these throughout the course of the year, but here we are with Dead Outlaw. We did see this in a preview because it opened on April 27th, which was the Sunday that we were supposed to be leaving, but didn't actually leave. But we saw this on the Wednesday afternoon because you won the lottery.
I did win the lottery. That gives me a lot of street cred. We needed this win so badly, I gotta be honest. At that point, no Rush had been announced. It seems like they are doing Rush at this point.
But they're not, it's not
it's not
officially
official?
out there. Yeah, it's
but
not on
show up to the
Playbill's
theater,
website.
You can get a $40 ticket, it seems. So we needed this so badly. And when I won that lottery, also for $33 tickets, shout out. And it was for the day we got there to the perfect time that we wanted to see this show. Nothing could have been better. And then even better, when we got to the theater, they went to scan my digital ticket and it said decline, and they said go to the box office, and they upgraded our tickets from back of the orchestra to the fourth row.
Because we're famous.
Famous, yeah. The ticket says $0 value, but it does say relocation, so.
Yeah. No, we did need this lottery win for sure. We also, because Steph had made a spreadsheet before we went, but in your spreadsheet it didn't include that matinees we would find out the day before, because we were really stressed about the fact that the lottery wins weren't going to come until after we were in a rush line. So it was the system is weird. I don't know if it's just a telecharge thing that you find out the matinees the day before, but you certainly don't find out the night performances until the day of. Whereas Broadway Direct, because we won Death Becomes Her, but we didn't actually use those lottery tickets.
We
found out
we both won
both
Death
of
Becomes
those
Her.
we found out both of those performances, matinee just the evening performance at 3 o'clock the day before.
Yeah, on the Wednesday.
So always check what is happening there with telecharge lottery or Broadway Direct lottery or really any lottery, because in our experience, matinees you find out the day before, which is super helpful in this situation. It was quite early. I think it was 2 or 3 p.m. the day before, because I was still at work and you were should I buy it? I was yes.
I was I won the Death Becomes Her lottery.
We didn't want to. No, Dead Outlaw.
Dead Outlaw, whatever lottery I won. Who remembers?
We didn't want to. We were a little afraid to buy in advance for the matinee, because just with delays, which
our flight was that morning.
Yeah, so you never know what time you'll get there, but as soon as when you win the lottery, at that point if you don't get there, it's you're out, $60 type thing. But we were absolutely fine on this.
On Tuesday, April 22nd at 3:06 p.m.
So that's not even a waitlist win. That's a real win.
No, I won straight away. Yeah, with Death Becomes Her, which again, we didn't even use them, but I won the lottery and you got put on the wait list, and then you got off the wait list, and then we
immediately, it was 2 minutes later. No, I got off the wait list before your time was even up to buy.
Oh, really?
So I don't know what happened there.
Maybe
yeah,
can,
it's possible someone
them.
Immediately declined, because if you win 2 lotteries, you can just decline. But your first lottery went in New York, so congratulations.
I know. Is that true? Yeah, I think so.
That's what you told me, yeah.
Yes, my
so
parents.
The only other
person
won. That's won is your parents have won, but you've never won.
My dad won the Into the Woods lottery, which like that was actually really clutch of him to win. Did he enter? No, I entered, but it was my dad's email that was used. Mm-hmm. And then my mom also won the Moulin Rouge lottery once, but we were Into the Woods and she didn't see it and it was too late. So we didn't.
Yeah, that is kind of a downfall if you're in a show and it comes out at like 3 and you only have like an hour and a half to buy it. That can be a downfall. I've also experienced like being in a theater and being on the Wi-Fi and it not coming through properly. So like, just take that as it is. But anyway, back to Dead Outlaw. I guess like we'll start where we always start, which is any pre-existing knowledge of Dead Outlaw. Did you have any?
All I really knew when it was announced to be coming to Broadway this season was that it had been a big hit the previous season off Broadway at the Audible Theater. And that was essentially it, to be honest. And we just heard really great reviews about the show. And so when it was time to pick what we would see, I just was really intrigued and wanted to catch something that people were saying was a favorite for Best Musical before it had even started performances on Broadway.
Yeah. Kind of same as you. Is the Audible Theater in the Minetta Theater? Sorry, I'm just reading.
I believe it's the same theater, yes.
Oh, okay. I knew of this because I have some friends that saw this off Broadway and had said that like this is. I actually think it was when we were in New York in October.
Oh yeah.
Would that be right? That like Matt would have messaged me and said that Dead Outlaw is amazing. I feel like that kind of. Maybe it was like he had seen it earlier that year, but had just said that his favorite thing that he'd seen was Dead Outlaw. Yeah. We will talk about the fact of like big stage versus small stage. I think that's kind of probably going to be like a reoccurring theme throughout maybe many of these episodes. But I had heard that like everybody that had seen it had loved it and that it was like so super unique and so super original. But beyond that, I didn't even do an ounce of research before we walked into this theater. I had no idea who the story was even about at all. I didn't know anything. I just knew that the title of this musical was Dead Outlaw, but I had no idea anything that we were about to see at all, which I actually think for this show is like kind of interesting. And sorry to anybody that knows me in my real life, because I've definitely spoiled the entire thing for you. If you're planning to see this in the future, you won't have...
He's dead.
Exactly. You won't have the same like blindness that we had, but I do think for this specific show, it's kind of good to go in off of nothing, because then you're just like so genuinely surprised and shocked by anything. Before we get any further, I will say this is full spoilers for Dead Outlaw, so like if you're planning to see it, do not listen to this episode right now. But if you are just kind of here to hear about this show, then you can keep listening. So do you want to give us a synopsis of Dead Outlaw before we get into this?
Sure. So Dead Outlaw is about this man, Elmer McCurdy, who had a bit of a troubled life. He was an outlaw. He wasn't a very good one. And he, at age of 30, so for the first kind of third of the show, we follow his life, his childhood growing up, his kind of, he devolved into alcoholism. He assumes other identities. He's in the military for a while. Then he's trying to rob trains and he's trying to use like explosives to rob safes. But again, at the end of the day, he's not a very good outlaw. We're unsure if he ever killed someone or was ever successful at robbing anything. But at 31 years of age, he was killed by a single gunshot wound. And that takes us to about a third, in my mind, of the way through the show. The rest of the show is after the morgue, they do the autopsy and no one comes to claim his body. So the morticians start charging 25 cents per person to come and view this dead outlaw because no one has come to claim this body. And then someone comes claiming to be his brothers, claim his body and take him with them, except they're not really his brothers. They run a carnival and they want to bring him as part of an attraction to their carnival. So the rest of the show is this body basically being passed around between different carnivals, movie studios, different types of attractions for almost 50 years basically. Sometimes he's in a closet for some point in time, just basically watching this body for 50 years being like used and abused for financial gain by these grifters almost, by different people before he is finally buried. And so we watch Andrew Duran, who's playing our dead outlaw, Andrew McCurdy, be kind of carted around stage in his coffin. Elmer McCurdy. We watch
Put some respect on his name.
Sorry, I forgot. We watch him be kind of carted around as Elmer McCurdy for the last 2/3 of the show in his little coffin, and kind of get to follow along with what happens to his body after his death.
Yeah. Just to add a slight more context into that, he was shot and killed in 1911, and he wasn't buried until 1975. So a long time. Now, when you hear this, you're like, wow, that does not sound like...
Does this story sing? I don't know if it does.
But what, like, struck me, I think, like, kind of maybe, like, halfway through this, I just kept thinking, like, how has nobody else told this story yet? Like, this is actually crazy that, like, there hasn't been a movie made about this. There was, I looked this up, there was a short that was made last year called Elmer, which, like, kind of talks about it. But based on what we saw, there were so many elements of this musical that, like, were kind of so cinematic that it could easily be turned into a movie, especially for the point that so much of his dead life he stars as like a movie star basically. So it just feels like something that like a Ryan Murphy would want to make into a TV show, you know what I mean? I'm just surprised it hasn't been done yet.
Well, I think it's really tricky because the person at the core of our story whose, you know, emotional journey we are potentially supposed to be following is dead. And so I think that's a really tricky thing to stage and to have some sort of like arc following. Like how do we have a beginning, middle, and end of this story? And so I do think it's a really interesting writing challenge to take on this story, not just like his life or not just his death, but his life and what happens to his body, and kind of tell it almost this like 80 plus year period. I think it is a really tricky thing to convey. And like, I will spoil this. This was like my favorite thing that we saw when we were in New York. I had like the absolute best time at it. I felt like I was at a rock concert. I was moved emotionally. I was laughing. It was just so fun and so unexpected. But what I will say is like, I don't necessarily know if it has an arc, like from beginning to end. I do think some parts we're just telling a bunch of stories that we think are really fun and really interesting with really great music. And sometimes that's enough. I don't know.
I was going to say, I almost feel like they set that up for you right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like what's his name? Jeb Brown, who plays like our narrator character, like at certain points will be like, he'll walk forward to the audience and be like, yeah, this is a true story. So like they kind of set up those moments that like you're just hearing a retelling of tales that somebody told somebody else through a time. Like I don't think they actually went to talk to anybody's family members of people that like had Elmer in their like closet type situation.
No, I think they used like research and history on
exactly
on what happened here. I think why it hasn't been told basically is that like, how do you structure this? How do you structure this? And they landed on something here that again I think works, but I don't know if I think it's like bold to land on this kind of structure and to just kind of confidently like go in chronological order versus, I don't know, trying to pull something else together.
Yeah, I mean, like, to make this story into a stage show at all is obviously such a risk because you have to make sure that your audience is invested in this character, like, pretty early to even be interested in the journey. I think it's a correct move that this is a 90-minute musical because I do think that, like, that tension would be broken if there was an intermission here. This was something that you said when we saw it, that like if there is an intermission, similarly to what we said about Floyd Collins, like he should stay on stage the entire time to show that like this man was in this state for as long as he was. But yeah, like there are many reviews online being like, I like this, but I also like don't really know what I think about this because I don't really know how to articulate like how I feel because this story is kind of insane. And did I really just sit in a theater for 90 minutes watching a musical about a dead body being paraded across the United States of America? And the answer is yeah, you did. And I loved it. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a hard one to recommend, obviously. And we had the conversation a few days ago of like when we both returned to work, like it's very hard to be like, yeah, my favorite show was this show called Dead Outlaw. It's about this body that gets like moved from city to city, like, in the States. So you're just like, I loved Boop. Like, that's what happened.
I literally was going to say, like, I told everyone about Boop. Like,
this is the thing, like, it's so...
Everyone asked me, I was like, have you heard of Betty Boop?
Yeah, like, I think a lot of the people that I work with know that I do this as well. So, like, they actually want my, like, thoughts about, like, things to see if they go to New York. But I'm just like, I can't really get into this because it's, like, kind of a lot to get into. So,
go see I laugh. At work, also, people were like, oh, what did you... I was talking to someone at work, and I was like, oh, I was in New York for the weekend. And they're like, oh, did you get to see any shows? And I was like, oh, well, did I see any shows? I was like, oh, yeah, that's my favorite thing to do. Like, what was your favorite one? And I was like, Boop.
Like, it's hard. It's really hard.
Like, I can't get into this right now. I cannot talk about this right now.
And I think that kind of leads, like, to, like, our initial conversation when we saw this of, like, is this something that probably works better off Broadway because it's in, like, a very intimate, small space, and you kind of just, like, have this weird experience together. But
this
a man
like
stopped you on the street to be like,
we were leaving. I'm pulling my playbill. He's like, he puts a hand on my shoulder. Just like an older man.
We were more than just leaving. We were kind of far away.
We were like a block away at that point.
Crossing the street.
Like, I'm seeing it next week. And I was like, it was so good. It was great.
Yeah.
It was our first show of the week. And just like, what an amazing start. Like when I left, I was like, oh, this feels like a downtown show. This feels like that cool show that if you've seen it, you have street cred. If you saw this off Broadway, you are the coolest person.
It's like Hamilton at the Public.
Like Hamilton at the Public, in my opinion. I fully agree on that. Like, it's just, this is a cool show, and it has that quote-unquote downtown edge that some of the other shows don't necessarily have. And I think, and some people have said, like, does it lose something to be in a quote-unquote more respected house, to be more mainstream? I don't know. Like, again, I loved it, but I see what they're saying, that, like, it is in such, like, a more conventional venue. Does that, like, take away some of its cool factor? I don't know.
Yeah, like, why do you think it moved? Like, why do you think that this was something that they thought that they should bring to Broadway?
So many reasons. It was so well reviewed, so they must have thought they had a good opportunity for awards, but also sales, money. You know, your cast albums sell more. You have more ability to license if you can say Broadway's Dead Outlaw versus off-Broadway's Dead Outlaw. Like, there's so many reasons. I honestly, again, loved it, but I cannot see this running more than, like, a year. Like, if that. Yeah. Like, I think it'll be done by January, probably.
I mean, like, it was interesting because we saw this as a Wednesday matinee, that is when the seniors go to the theater, right? Like, that is the time when these people are there. And I don't think a lot of people, including me, knew what they were there for. No. But, like, I can sit in a theater when the music is, like, blasting loud, but I'm not sure that, like, everybody in that theater could do that in a comfortable way. You know what I mean?
During Killed a Man in Maine, which is very early on the show, I leaned over to you and I said, it's 2:30 p.m. on a Wednesday. Like,
and there was a child in that theater.
Right, there was a child. I was like, I can't believe this is happening right now. I can't believe we're, like, going so hard at 2:30 p.m. on a Wednesday.
Yeah, and, like, super thankful that they were, but it's just like, I don't know that that's sustainable in this, like, climate of the season for the long run. But I also don't think that, like, it needs to be. Although if they do well at the Tonys, then, like, that will also help them. I don't even know when it's on sale till at this point, to be honest.
I don't know either. So. It's an open-ended run, but again, I don't think it's going to be, you know, the new Phantom of the Opera here. I think
it will do better and have a longer run than its previous tenant at the Long Acre, which was swept away, which is kind of interesting because I feel like it's also a very, like, bro-y, like, all-men musical that is in that theater.
They eat a dead body in that musical. Sorry to anyone who didn't know about Swept Away. As opposed to just kind of, like, observe a dead body in this musical, but...
Yeah. I'm just looking. It's currently on sale until October, but you know what? I actually think that was a recent extension. I think I saw this the other day, that it's currently on sale till, like, October 12th. Let's, I guess, talk about, like, the framing of the show, the way that they tell the story. Yes. So we have the band on stage, which is always super fun, and leading that band is our narrator. Does he have a name as the narrator? I don't think so.
No, I think he's just called, like, band leader or something, and then he does play a character.
Jared.
That comes in later, but no, when he's just singing with the band, he's just the band leader. And they're kind of in what I would call a train car, and it rotates and moves from side to side on the stage, but they're in kind of almost like a shipping container, but a train car. A whole band, and it's kind of like boho decorated inside, and that's where the band plays the whole show, so you get to, for the most part, see them while the show's happening.
A female conductor. She was on the piano and she was conducting.
So fun.
And she was also doing like background vocals
Rebecca.
at certain points. Yeah. Actually, almost everybody in that car was doing like background vocals, but it was actually fun. We were sitting so close so we could really see everything, but it was fun to watch them because they were so into the music that they were playing as well, which was really fun. It, like, in a way, it's definitely not the same thing, but the setup of the band reminded me a bit of Stereophonic because it's kind of this, like, boxed in... Theirs was a recording studio, but this was just, like, a boxed in session, almost. Obviously, the difference is that was a set that didn't move, and this is a set that does move, but this set doesn't move as quickly as I thought it would. That was like the one thing I knew when we went in, was that the set moved around the stage, but I thought it would happen like much sooner than it did, but it doesn't really happen until he like gets on that train for the first time.
Right.
And then it actually starts moving. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it might be the Indian train actually.
Might be.
Was that too late? No, that's kind of early enough. Late. Yeah, so he like climbs up and we're starting to go on his like journey, and that's when the car starts to move, and it moves like...
I actually think it might be a little earlier.
Maybe it's Nobody Knows Your Name. I don't really know.
Maybe it's there. Album's not out. I think Indian Train is when he's trying to rob the train.
Sure.
Which is a bit later.
But anyway, it doesn't just like rotate, it turns all the way basically around.
And sometimes it goes like extreme side of the stage.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about that one scene when they're kind of like crawling through the doorways and it's moving all the way around, and I think it's Eddie Cooper's character that's like pushing it. He's the train conductor and he's like swirling the light, but the whole set is like moving in a circle. It's really like impressive to see that. We have heard, just based on like Reddit users, that the rush tickets, if you're on the far side, you could be obstructed because again there's like a big box that's moving on stage, similarly to like maybe Happy Ending, no movement, but just you're boxed in there. So just keep that in mind. But originally when we were looking at this, because at the time when we knew that we were going, we wanted to see it on a Wednesday.
Buy a full price ticket.
Rush. Yeah, so there was like preview pricing. We were looking at the balcony, and I think it would have been absolutely fine to sit up there because Andrew Duran does spend time on the top of that boxed set. So
that's when I thought we were a little obstructed. When he was up top there, I was like, I don't know if I can necessarily see. Yeah, he lies down, and there's stuff, not that much happens up there, but he's up there a little bit. And then we were on
He dies up there.
So stage right. So. He does die up there. We were on house left, so stage right, and the train car like goes all the way to stage right at one point, and so if you were a bit more house left than us, I think you would have been obstructed a bit. But on the other side, if you're obstructed, you might block like the safes or the concrete like cement truck thing that comes out. So, either way.
Yeah, so obviously, as always, like a center-ish seat is the best way to see these. But in this scenario, like if you're worried about sitting in the balcony, don't be worried about sitting in the balcony because I've read, at least from people online, that like it's a great seat up there too. And it sounds and it's also, big, so...
Yes, it's really loud in there. And also, it's a fairly, what I would call, shallow theater. Like, there's not that many rows in this house. And even the balcony, the overhang is not that much. But it's like, there's not that many rows. So you're pretty close, even if you're all the way up there.
Yeah.
In my mind. The last thing I saw there, this is the Longacre, right? The last thing I saw there, I think, was the prom, which is crazy.
Yeah, so different. And you said you sat in the orchestra. I sat in the mezzanine.
Yeah, I sat in the orchestra.
So, yeah. But yeah, so we kind of like, this show kicks off with like Elmer on top of the set, like kind of, just telling us what he wants to do with his life. And then we get into the number that we've been singing since we got back. Actually, since the day that we saw it, literally since Wednesday afternoon.
Your dad is dead.
Which is the song
and so
Dead.
Are you.
And I think it was like literally at that moment, which is song 2, as soon as the band kicked in, I was like, oh, this is going to be really good. So,
yeah.
And then
Jeb Brown's voice, I loved his voice so much.
Even the tone of his speaking voice is like really pleasant to listen to, and he's the one that's talking to us the most. So
yes, and there's someone else singing. I'm not sure who it is, and I don't think it's the person on the cast recording, but it's probably like one of the, like, I don't know if it's J.R. Atkins or like
the guy that's at the front with him.
The other guy at the front singing. He's not in the cast. He's just in the band. I don't know who he was, but
they should have band pictures here because the band.
Yeah, especially because they're on stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved his voice as well, and I don't think he's the one on the cast album that we've heard so far.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I wonder when they recorded that, because maybe it was like during his off-Broadway run.
So the off-Broadway run was recorded for Audible, like the full thing, like the audio, I think is going to be released as like an Audible something.
Yeah.
And then my guess is these 7 songs that came out, they like part 1 of the cast album was released, is what they had recorded for like promotional materials. And so I think in light of the Tony nominations, they're like, okay, let's put out what we've got so that people can listen to it and become hopefully intrigued by our show and see it / vote for it in the lead up to the Tony Awards. And then the rest of the album still needs to be recorded and mastered, I think.
That just reminded me, I feel like I actually think the reason that we were upgraded is because they were taking photos that day in the theater. We could see they had like the super long promo lenses out there. So those are probably the photos that you see online now for the show. I think
that's why they were really delivering it.
Yes, I think they were taking them the day that we were in the theater because it seemed like those last few rows in the
our original tickets were Rear Orchestra.
Were taken up by men with large lenses on their cameras. Yeah, I just, again, like, this story is so wild. There's, like, so many aspects of this book that we could get into. It's interesting because, like, I love Andrew Durand. I liked him before we even saw this. And I think we've talked about the fact, I think we talked about this in our Tony nominations episode as well, that, like, the first third of this show, he's playing a obviously completely different character than he is in this in the rest of the show, because for the rest of the show he's not moving and he's doing a completely different type of acting. But I think his first third is so interesting, and it just shows you how like bad this guy was at being an outlaw. Like, all he wanted to do was go punch people behind the bar. Like, who cares? Get over yourself.
What is asked of him during that first part of the show versus what is being asked of him for the rest of the show is so different. And I can't imagine the mental preparation it takes to have to go out and give so much in like such a short burst, and then have to kind of like, you know, flip that switch for the end and like stay on, because he does have cues that he needs to follow like throughout. Like, he's not completely frozen.
But it's also like
it's so much.
He doesn't have the saving grace of like an intermission to like get yourself ready. It's like one scene he's up on the train shooting people. The next thing you see, he's on a metal table being put into a coffin, and then he stays there until like almost the end of the show. I did want to read, I saw an article the other day, and I took a screenshot of it. I don't know the publication, but Andrew Durand was interviewed specifically about the second half of his performance. So he says that like for some of 40 minutes he's a corpse standing in a coffin, and he said, some nights I want to scream, some nights I want to rip my skin off. That pressure you can't move starts to get to me, and there are nights that it's very challenging. And he says, like, you watch this man have this successful career as a corpse. I think it just makes people really think about their own humanity, what's important while we're alive, which is kind of like what we've been talking about, I think, this entire time. And what do we do with the time that we have while we're alive? But I was saying to you, we're now kind of getting to like the second half. We can go back to the first half after. But like when he's in that coffin, we were lucky where we were sitting that he was on our side for a majority of that.
Yeah, like right in front of us.
Time in there.
Yeah, if you were a bit more to the left of us,
you wouldn't see him.
You might have been a bit obstructed from him.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, I think being close for this show is really good because I was watching him the whole time. Like,
you really see like the nuances of his performance. Like,
like there's obviously so much happening on stage, but I was just I was literally just watching to see him blink, and I don't even think I saw him properly blink because he has this stance where he's almost like squinting so tightly that his eyes are barely even open, that when he blinks it's very hard to tell. We see his hands move. I was reading, someone said that they were sitting in the front row and they were just like so like hyper fixated on him, didn't even watch anything that was happening around, that like in the blackout moments, like they saw him like move his jaw, like
take a breath,
his head a little bit, just
stretch.
to like, yeah, like there's, I think like maybe 1 or 2 moments in that entire time when the coffin is like fully turned around that he could maybe do something, but otherwise it is facing the audience the entire time. So like if you move, everybody sees it. And yes, like we can obviously suspend our disbelief to know that there's a dead body in a coffin, but he really committed to that craft the entire way through, all the way until
helps the audience out a lot.
Literal video that I sent you the other day where he said that there's a moment in the show when a microphone comes down from the ceiling and he could see that the mic cord was in a place where the wheels of the coffin would not go over it, and he was the only one that could see that, and he can't tell anybody because he's a dead body.
Like a stagehand is pushing him, basically.
Yeah, so the stagehand pushes him. The wheels, obviously, as he thought, don't go over the cord. He falls out of the coffin, and then they drag him off by the arms because he can't just like get up and get back into it. And then I assume that they wheeled the coffin off behind him and he got back in, and then they brought it back.
Yeah.
But it's just like he's doing nothing, but at the same time
he's so committed to the dead bodiness.
So much. He's doing so much. We've also talked about the fact that Andrew Durand has the type of face that kind of like suits this because he's kind of gaunt.
It's like sunken in a little bit. His eyes are sunken, like his cheeks are sunken.
He's like very like chiseled kind of, so it almost like works. I wonder, there's not even time for him to get like a makeup touch up for him to be more
it's
like...
It's all physicality. It's all his own physicality.
Yeah, so it's just, like, super impressive to watch him do that. I could see the veins in his, like, fingers while he was holding that gun for literally 45 minutes. Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing because this is a performance kind of, like, unlike any other that I've seen anyway. And it's hard to know even how to judge it due to the, like, impressiveness of that, like, stillness that he has for the second act. While just, like, a lot are happening around him. It's loud, like, people are singing, like, we're having a good time around him, and he just has to, like, really commit to this, to being a dead body. And yeah, I absolutely loved him in it. I thought he did such a great job. I'd seen him in Head Over Heels once before, and I think he has, like, a really beautiful voice. But yeah, I hadn't seen him do anything like this, and so I was really, really impressed by his performance.
Yeah, and then... to go back to the earlier half, like, he has, as you said, like, such a great singing voice. And I, a few months ago, watched the Shucked NPR Tiny Desk. And the writers were there, the songwriters, and they said that he is a dream to have in a cast. Like, they literally, it seemed like, wrote this score kind of based around him. Because he has such an interesting like tone to his voice. He can really sing like a rock song. What is that song called that he just like loses it on stage?
I believe it's called Killed a Man in Maine, not on the 7 songs already released.
It's so good. He like takes his shoe off at one moment, is like hitting a cymbal on the ground. He's like rolling all over the place. He's singing like at the top of his register. Like, it's really, really impressive. So I think like he's someone that people enjoy working with because he's so committed to everything that he does. But yeah, the show is like literally wild. I kind of want to talk about like the things that happen to the body. Sure. As we go in the show. One of my favorite things, and I just think about that they spent money on a set piece that was used for maybe like 1 second, is when he is bought by the movie director. Is it a director or whoever that man is?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
and he stars in these like old films. I think is it The Narcotic? Is that the one that they like talk about?
Yeah, one of them.
But they bring these like cardboard like beautiful like sets, which is they just have it placed in front of him, and it looks like a movie poster. Like, it's so well done the way that they just like parade his body. When the carnival sign comes down, like, there's just so much that happens that you think that you know where this story is going, and then a new proper set piece comes out, and you're like, wait, I actually have no idea how this is going to end.
Yeah, every twist and turn, and sometimes, again, the band leader would come out and say, this actually happened. Like, the one where he was, I think this might have been the film producer, but like it's Millicent's song where Julia Nattel sings the song about like the young schoolgirl who just has this corpse in her kitchen while she's growing up, and it becomes like a confidant for her, and she talks to him and like shares her deepest, darkest secrets with this 50-year-old or 30-year-old at that point corpse that just resides in her house, and she has this like emotional bond with it, and you're like, this is crazy.
I love when she walks in for the first time and sees it at the house and just screams.
She screams.
And then it becomes like her best friend.
That's an appropriate reaction. That is an appropriate reaction. That is one of the moments that kind of like reminds you of the humanity that like this once a human being, and it like is still a human being, but like was once like a living, breathing person who like had loves, had thoughts, and like she personifies this dead body. So I think what the show is trying to explore, and I think that's what like Andrew Duran was saying in that clip of the interview, that said like our relationship to like what happens to us when we die, and our relationship to life, and our relationship to death, and like so many of these things, his body is like used, it is like manipulated, it's not treated very respectfully, and then they keep coming out with this refrain saying like all these people are dead and so are you, because at the end of the day, like, not to be morbid, we will all die. Like this is a fate, not a specific fate, but like a fate generally that will escape none of us. So it's I don't know, a really, really interesting kind of examination of what it means to die. And
it's kind of interesting
because what humans feel about it.
There's also a part of me that thinks, because all this guy wanted to do, well, so we know, before he died, was like be this great like outlaw, and he obviously wasn't, but like, would he have been happy to know that he had success in his afterlife? Like, I wonder.
Well, that's the thing. Like, he wasn't a great outlaw, but to sell tickets to see him, they told everyone he was. This is this famous outlaw. And it's like, does it matter if you were or you weren't, if everyone believes that you were? Like, is that all that matters in the end? What the perception is?
Yeah, I just wonder if like if only he had known the success that his body had after he died, like what would he think? We'll obviously never ever know the answer to that question, but it's just funny to think of like how he was so miserable until he was asked to break into this safe, and then you could see there was like a little glimmer of like hope in his eye that he could be this like great man, and that he still couldn't do that properly until he was gone. So it's just like kind of interesting to think about the success of his life after he no longer was alive. Yeah, it's just like it's a very interesting way to tell this man's story. I wonder if they like, do you think anyone was like contacted in the process to be like, are we okay to do this? I only bring this up because apparently someone did talk to like Floyd Collins's like great niece and something like that. Like, I don't know. No one claimed this man's body, so, like, does he even have anybody?
That's the thing. Like, I think to eventually identify, it was really difficult. I don't think when his body was eventually claimed, I don't think family claimed the body. I think what was represented in the musical, but also just, like, reading, people from Oklahoma, which is where he had died, kind of, like, convinced them to let them take the body, quote unquote, home to bury him there. But I don't think any family ever was able to claim him in that way. So I don't even know if we'd be able to find any living relatives who feel that sort of connection to him. Right.
It's also interesting because like the way that he was buried, like they found him because he was hanging in a theme park. His body was painted red, and it reminds me of those like, it literally reminds me of those like Halloween like horror nights or something like that, when like they have these dummies that are attached to a ceiling and you're like going through this maze to try and figure out like how to get out. Like that's what that reminds me of. And the only reason that this was brought to anybody's attention is because his arm fell off and bone was exposed, and someone was like, oh, this isn't a dummy, like this is a real body.
They were filming the $6 Million Man in this like funhouse, and normally he wouldn't be touched, but because they moved him out of the way to get a camera in position, and then he started falling apart and disintegrating in front of their eyes, and they saw bone. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. And he would have just been left there if that hadn't happened.
For probably ever.
For who knows how long.
And the reason to answer the question of why wasn't he decomposing earlier, it's because his body was filled with arsenic, which stopped the decomposing from happening.
They were trying to, like, preserve him so that someone could come in time to, like, claim the body. That's what the coroners did. Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
And then that, like, leads to one of, I think, like, the best characters, and we talked about this, like, kind of a little bit on our Tony nominations episode. Tom Sesma, who is playing the doctor.
Coroner Noguchi. Coroner Noguchi. A real coroner. A real man.
Yes. Who was maybe pushed out of this category for nominations because Jeb Brown found his way in there, but he's basically, like, doing the coroner's report. He talks about the fact that this man has had an autopsy. Did he say he's the second person to touch it? I think that's what he said.
Yeah, the second autopsy on him. Yeah.
But the body that's on the table is red because that's how it was last found. I have to believe that they took some sort of impression of Andrew Duran's face because we were close enough to see that it looked like his face.
Possibly.
Which is crazy. But we get the report earlier, but then towards the end of the show, we get, like, the full report. And he says that... he, like, opens his mouth and they find, like, tickets were stuffed in there until it was, like, wired shut. And then that's how he finds out that there's arsenic in the body because he obviously cuts it open. And then we get this, like, insane song that has been released.
Coroner Noguchi was, you know, the coroner to the stars. Like, this people he sings about, he did do their autopsies. That was, like, he did JFK's autopsy. Like, the one about that, like, about him being shot in the... Anyway. No, he did RFK's conspiracy. Anyway, not JFK's, sorry. Got my Kennedys
Got your K's wrong.
got my Kennedys wrong. Wow, so much RF Kennedy, like, got so much Robert F. Kennedy because Just in Time, Bobby Darin musical, we're talking about Robert. Okay. Anyway, so he was this coroner to the stars, and so when you first meet him, he's doing this, like, very serious autopsy. And then he's like, he pulls the microphone down and he just starts doing, like, a classic jazz ballad about the, like, celebrities that he did the autopsy on. The quote that we cannot stop doing. Natalie would. Natalie won't.
Natalie won't.
Natalie won't. Like, what happened on that boat? I was like, it's so funny. Yeah, and I think what is so successful about this musical, what makes it work so well, is they really contrast these, like, serious moments with these moments of, like, extreme comedy. And I think this is a great example of that, where he's just... you know, doing a very serious autopsy, and then he just kind of starts carooning.
A chandelier comes down from the ceiling.
A chandelier. He's, like, on the ground, like, lying at the front of the stage, like, talking to people in the audience, like, so charming, so funny.
But what also, like, makes that number so amazing is that it ends with, like, the mic goes up, but then all those other microphones come out as he's doing, like, a press conference. It's so, it's so smart to, like, we as the audience get, like, this... over the top, like, maybe how he would think about this in his mind, and then you inside. Like, see him, like, giving the report to all of the reporters. It's like all of these microphones in front of his face. It's so well done. Like, that the staging is so great in that moment. I think this kind of could probably perfectly tie us in here to this score. We talked about this on our Tony nominations episode. I will say it again. This is my favorite David Yazbek score to ever exist.
Yeah, I agree.
There are 7 songs that have been released from part 1, as Steph was saying. We won't get part 2 until the fall. But it does, like, if you listen to this, it does give you kind of the gist of, like, what you're going to hear in this show. I've been singing Something from Nothing, like, every day. I think that is, like, literally his best written song. It builds in such an amazing way. It sounds great on the cast recording, but, like, seeing it live in the theater, I think, is like the way to hear this music for sure.
Yeah, that was the song that they played out as we exited the theater after the band finished up. They started just blasting Something from Nothing through the theater, and so we were like, okay, we got it again. We got to hear it one more time so we can, like, hold on to it.
Yeah.
Before the cast album was released, like, B-Way Show had a clip of Something from Nothing on YouTube that I had, like, kept going back to. But now I just got it on my Spotify.
They did, like, a concert. They did, like, a concert night, I think about, like, a week or two before the show started previews, just to get, like, the influencers in on this, which I think is really smart to do something like that. But yeah, that song specifically, like Eddie Cooper leads that, who he has such an amazing voice, but also shout out to Trent Saunders because like, I don't know where you came from, but like,
Outlaw.
And also the song that he sings about like the runner, like it's crazy. Like he's doing so much. I don't even understand the ins and outs of that marathon. I was trying to like pay attention, but it seemed like they were running very far.
He ran across country.
For how long?
Like days, weeks.
It must be weeks. Days would be too short. Because it ended in New York, right? I think that's what he said is the marathon ended in New York. Yeah, but I don't remember where it started.
It was International Transcontinental Foot Race in 1928.
Wow.
So he would have been 21 years old. It was much of it along Route 66. I think Route 66 had just opened from LA to New York. So
that's far.
23 days. Okay, no. So it was over 84 days, but they didn't run like consistently. So it was like, so the amount he was running was 23 days, but it was over an 84-day like staged run because they would like pack up this carnival and pick it up at different stops so people could like watch the runners go by and then also spend money on
I thought
things.
It was so interesting when they talked about that race specifically because I think it's Trent Saunders' character who's like, why is this dead body like here? And it's like this is a tourist attraction now. Like the people come here to take a picture with the dead outlaw and also watch the people run by. Yeah,
the dead body is a tourist attraction, and so are you. And so are you running. And it's interesting that like at the end of the song, like he chooses to, you know, not capitalize on his fame and kind of go back to his normal life. And kind of a choice that he has, but a choice that someone like Elmer McCurdy doesn't have.
There's like so many little elements to this. I would be so interested to hear from like family members from people that bought the body. Because I think it would be like so interesting to just learn more about like them in this sense. I guess that's where like a movie TV show could come into play, is to find out the people that bought the body. The only person that we like hear from, I guess, like close to when he was buried is the man who bought him the first time, and then like the sports guy, and then brings him back around again, and he lives in his closet for 20 years because that man died. That's
like the son. Yeah, like that's his son there who
so
we get to hear from.
He's probably like the most recent person that we hear from in the show. Is this guy died and his son, I guess, found him in the closet, which would be insane to even do that. And he sells him for what, like $200, I think that's what he sells him for.
Yeah, basically nothing. It's crazy. Let's see if it's on his Wikipedia. He was in a warehouse. Okay, Dan sold the body along with other wax figures for $10,000 to... So it was like a part of a lot. It was sold to the owner of the Hollywood Wax Museum.
But the other people were wax. This was a real body.
Yes, no, I know.
Like, it's wild. That's the crazy part. It's actually crazy.
Like, the thing is, like, over the years, like, he really was dehumanized. Like, people forgot that this was at one time a person.
Because it made them money. Like, they didn't care, right? Like,
and like, is this a commentary on like the dehumanization of fame generally, of like capitalism, of like using other people to like making money off of other people's like misfortune, tragedy, like thinking about Floyd Collins that we were just talking about in an episode you've potentially already heard. Like, again, this man's like, this horrible thing that's happening to this man is making other people money on carnivals, concessions, and you're forgetting that like a person is dying down there, or a person is dead here. The dehumanization of both of these people.
We had said this in the other episode, but it's interesting because like Elmer McCurdy was dead, Floyd Collins was still alive, and they're making money off of this man that is like still alive.
But they're kind of treating them both the same way.
Yeah, like the way that they treat Floyd almost feels like he is already dead. Like he doesn't have a say in any of this because they can't get to him. Whereas like Elmer was already dead. You cannot ask him anything. His family did not come and claim his body, so there's no one to even talk to do anything. It's just like, it's pretty wild that this is a true story. And then basically they say like towards the end that or like at the end that he was finally buried in like 1975, and like that's where his body to this day still rests. Like I think Jeb Brown says you can go to this like specific Oklahoma cemetery and you can see the stone there, which then made me think of like Hamilton and Trinity Church, which we didn't go into, but we did
Not
walk past.
Wait, I've seen it before.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like super interesting. I just like imagine that first ever workshop table read with these actors. They're probably it's sorry, what?
Bold. It's bold to adapt this, I think. It's really, really bold to...
I'm also just curious to know, like, who of the writers here was like, so I've read this story about this man. Like, who brought this to the table? You know what I mean?
I know. I wonder if we can find that information. Like, where did the inspiration for this come? Because looking at, let's say, David Yazbek's other work, most of them are movie adaptations. Like, everything else that he's brought to Broadway at this point, I believe, is a movie adaptation. So...
Yeah. This is super original, but this is the same, like...
It's a true story, but it's not.
Team
Itamar Moses, David Cromer, like the same team as the band's Visit, which I think is really...
Yeah. This is music and lyrics by David Yazbek and Eric Della Penna. Just to say, sorry, I didn't say Eric Della Penna's name ever. Shouting you out here. We haven't talked about you at all. We've only been saying David Yazbek wrote this score.
You know what? Eric Della Penna, hilarious. I love it. Yeah, I wonder... Because I don't think Eric Della Penna was involved in the band's Visit. So I wonder if, like, that's where maybe some of the, like, sharper, snarkier, kind of, like, comedic stuff comes from. I don't know. I'm making it up.
Yeah. I think we talked about this, like, when we first saw it, but I do think this is, like, a super great David Cromer directed show. Like, I think this is one of those shows where you can see the direction, and I mean that in, like, a positive way, because sometimes you can see the direction, and I mean that in a negative way, but this is good. Like, this is really, there's never a moment in this 90 minutes that feels like there's a lull or that we should be moving faster. I think the pacing is really good, and they tell the story that needs to be told. I couldn't imagine this with an intermission. I think the momentum would just be so broken.
I agree. I think it's just like, it has really like propulsive energy that keeps you going forward. I think so much of that is done with the music. Like, the music just has this like great energy, not even just Dead, but one that I kind of, you know, had gone to the back of my mind. But when I heard the cast album, like Indian Train, I was like, oh, so I love this. I love this song. And the way that they use the music to keep that momentum going, it never feels like a slow moment. So one of his best scores. I'm obsessed.
They also, this ensemble is like not the biggest ensemble you've ever seen, but it's also not the smallest ensemble. But I love the way that they're used. They're playing many different characters, and specifically when he is like paraded around these different cities in the States, they like change of glasses, they put a hat on, they wear like a different blazer to like show the people coming to visit the dead body. Yeah. So they're kind of just like tourists almost the entire time, the ensemble, and like. It's just like really well done the way that they get to play and have fun in this show. Yeah, it's just like, it's really good. Like, I really don't have anything more to say than that it's really good.
Yeah, it's just like such a fun show. I just had like such good energy watching it. It felt just like really thoughtfully put together. So I had a wonderful time at this show. Yeah, like most of the criticism I've seen are kind of like, I don't really get the point. And like, I see where people are coming from here. Like, you know,
like same, but I don't care.
No. Yeah, like I'm having such a good time. Yeah, it's just like, okay. And then this, you know, what we've been talking about, that second section, you know, there's a part 1 where he's alive and there's a part 2 where he's dead. And that second section is just kind of like a series of events that occurred in the proximity of this body. And, you know, like, again, like, is there an overarching arc? This is why I think, like, as much as people say, oh, is this the best musical favorite? I think no, because it doesn't have that, like, really satisfying, like, beginning, middle, and end, like, hallmark of storytelling. I think it, like, intentionally, like, loses that in the second half. It's more just kind of like an exploration of humanity, if you will.
Sometimes the Tony voters love weird things.
Maybe. Like, it worked for me, but I can see it, people being like, huh, okay.
Yeah, like that kind of goes back to like what we said at the beginning, like this is a hard show to recommend because it's so different. It's so vastly different from part 1 to part... I think we even got a part 3 when he's buried. I'm pretty sure Jeb like comes out to say like part 3 or something like that. Like there's 3 times he says something. But it's the first act. There's only one act. But the first quarter or third and then the rest of it is just like so different from each other. Like we even have a bit of a love story here that we haven't even touched on. But it's almost kind of fake because he wasn't the person that he said he was.
A fake identity. He had assumed a fake identity. And was in a 3-year relationship with someone. That's crazy. That's so scary as a girl.
A stranger, right?
Yeah, when she actually does come and I look at the body and she's like, I don't know this. I spent years with you, and at the same time, I don't know your real name. I don't know anything about you. I don't know any of these things. Crazy.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. Do you have anything else to say?
No, I don't. I really loved this music. I felt it had such good energy. I just had such a great time in the theater. I thought the cast was just slaying everything. Not to pun, but they killed it.
It's also, I think it says something when the very first thing you see ends up being the best thing that you see.
Everything is compared. You're like,
Yeah, it set the tone so early. It also, and I hate to say this because I don't always feel this way, but when you see something like this that I think is such a high caliber of creativity and talent, it's oh, is Broadway the be all end all? Is this really that great? And I think for this show, it is that. And again, I hate to say this because I think we have really great theater in Canada, specifically in Toronto. But when you see something like this that kind of just takes you out and shows you what can be done in a small space in 90 minutes with not very much set, but also kind of a lot of set at the same time.
It did look expensive. It did look expensive.
Well, to
the cement.
Also for the expensive, not even the cement. There's one moment when they open up the door to throw the body in there for cremation. I'm where did this come from?
Yes, but then they don't end up cremating him. But yes, they open a door.
No, they open this big metal door. There's smoke that comes out of that door. I'm where did this come from? And then at one point there's a stage hand, a staff member, whoever we want to call a crew member, that brings out this cement truck, and I'm oh, we'll just be able to use our imagination and tell that there's cement there. No, they actually poured the cement into the stage.
It took a second to get going. It took some time to get going. I think they should maybe preset that cement starting to come down.
They can't because she's wheeling the body around. They need another member back there.
There's got to be somebody else on the... There were multiple stagehands, I think. There was one that was on stage.
Did she bow?
No, the stagehands are a part of this show. They are on stage so much. Moving set objects, moving the body, so
when she's
often.
Stuck on stage for a while in the crowd,
just standing behind the coffin
there. Yeah,
near the end. So funny. I'm just imagining the rehearsal. Yeah, they were all black, but then a little bandana to get in the world of the show. So funny.
I thought when that cement truck came out and the trap door was open, I thought he was gonna go in there, and that's how I thought it was gonna end.
No, he was just kind of watching at that point. He's walking again at that point. He's just watching himself be buried. So funny.
Yeah.
Such funny stuff.
So interesting. But yeah, this show is available on TKTS, which I think is it makes sense because I do think it is a little bit of a hard sell. It's not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been marketed enough, honestly.
They need some influencers to get behind this to talk about the show because that is kind of the way that a lot of these shows have had such good marketing is through social media. So I feel we need to get on that. But before we rate this, it is readily available on TKTS. Obviously, we run the lottery, so that's through Telecharge, that lottery, and they have not announced it, but maybe by the time this episode comes out, there is in-person
An official rush.
I don't know if this show has standing room. I want to say no, because the back of that theater isn't as open as some others, but there is unofficial rush. I don't know the price of those tickets. Possibly $40, but I'm not.
I've heard $40.
Yeah.
We're always on the
lottery
Reddit.
Was $33.
We're always on the Broadway Rush Report Reddit, so that's kind of where I get my most up-to-date information on what's happening.
I think someone got a ticket today Rush. From what I saw.
Yeah, so
yeah,
good stuff.
But
we're gonna rate it.
Oh, sorry. Yes, let's rate it.
Okay, I will start. I am gonna rate Dead Outlaw 9 out of 10 bandanas worn by stagehands.
Great. I'm also gonna rate this 9 out of 10. So boring when we have the same rating. But
I know.
Like, sorry, it is what it is. Like, it was just so good. I can't give it the classic 10 out of 10, and 8 is not good enough, so it has to be 9.
I know. No, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
And we don't give half points
one time.
Here.
No, we don't give half points. 10 out of 10 was given one time, and I don't think we can ever get... It would have to be really special to get another 10 out of 10.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm also giving this a 9 out of 10, and I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 of those like red Andrew Durand zombie bodies that was on that metal table. Also to say here, if you want to see this show again at this point, but I also think we discussed this previously that this show is not going to go on tour. Like, you got to go to New York to see this.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't. This is not a touring show. It just doesn't really
seem like a tourable show.
Imagine this at the Ed Mirvish.
No. I do think, like, once it gets into licensing territory, like, it would be fun regionally to do this for sure, but let's
talk about Crow's Theatre in Toronto. Let's talk about Crow's Theatre in Toronto doing Dead Outlaw. Anytime that something's kind of, like, cool, I'm like, Crow's Theatre.
I know, but, like, not anytime soon. This will be
not anytime soon. But they keep doing, like, Dave Malloy stuff, and this is kind of, like, I don't know, same, like, cool level in my mind.
It will be, like, Andrew Penner on the guitar.
Of course. Always. It's always
as he did in Ghost.
It's always Andrew Penner on the guitar. Who's the other guy?
I know. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name right now. But yeah.
Yeah, and then like Haley Gillis as the girl character, obviously, and then just, you know, I don't know. Someone needs to commit to standing still for 45 minutes, that's tricky. And I don't know that we have the talent here. Well, someone start practicing. Like, let's go. We have the talent.
Start practicing your non-movements for 40 minutes. Start your timers now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's our thoughts on Dead Outlaw, and now it's time for our obsession of the week. What is your obsession this week, Steph?
Okay, well, earlier today we were talking about, obviously, Boop, and how when our coworkers ask us...
What do you mean earlier today? We have not stopped talking... You specifically have not stopped talking about Boop for a week.
I'm referencing this specific episode, which is what the other people listen to. They don't know us in our personal lives. I'm referencing this episode where we discussed Boop.
If they listen to any of our last 4 episodes, Steph has talked about Boop. The unofficial. You know what? Maybe you should write into them and tell them that you'll specifically do marketing for Boop, because I really think they should tap into you on this.
I had such a nice time at Boop. I just thought Boop was just like a beautiful show, and I don't know. Will we get to an episode about Boop? Maybe one day. We'll see.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah. I think Boop's going to tour.
You know why? I was going to say, the reason that we'll talk about the show is because it's going to go on tour, so yeah.
Boop's going to tour. But what I want to talk about is there's 4 songs from the cast album out, and they've been on repeat since I got home. Okay, the first song we heard
Even before that.
Before, we knew Where I Want to Be, and that song is a bop, but the song that...
Were you listening to these in the Rush line without me? I feel like you might have been.
No, I wasn't. I literally wasn't. I didn't listen to
I swear when it got to Sunday, you were like, I love this Dwayne song. And I was like, how do you know about this?
Just like I was on TikTok. TikTok was obsessed with Why Look Around. Oh, no, not Why Look. She Knocks Me Out. I played it for my parents the other night. I played She Knocks Me Out for my parents the other night. Like, it sounds like a Michael Bublé song. I'm like, exactly.
Because David Foster.
I actually think David Foster was robbed of a Best Original Score nomination. I think it's just a really hard year. It's a really tricky year. Sorry to Real Women Have Curves, but I would probably put this in. But I didn't see Real Women Have Curves, so who can I speak to?
And again,
what do
if
I
you're
know?
a frequent listener of the podcast, Steph also said those exact words, that David Foster was robbed of a Boop nomination.
He was, and I need to keep saying it. Okay, he did that. So I love She Knocks Me Out. I love Why I Look Around the Corner.
Not to interrupt you, but like, we haven't shouted the fact that David Foster is Canadian.
I know, so true. Canadian. Yeah, we wanted a Canadian nominated here. And this is another Smash connection for this Broadway season, because his wife, Catherine McPhee, was in the TV show Smash. So another Smash connection for this Broadway season. Why Look Around the Corner is so sweet. It's kind of like one of the romantic scenes between Betty and Dwayne. And like, I just remembering the staging of it when she's like, there's no bouncing ball. And then it becomes like the bouncing ball does the sing-along on the projection. Like, so sweet. They're on the roof. Like, it's so cute. And then when she sings Something to Shout About, like her kind of 11 o'clock number, like, I just think they're written in the style of like a classic musical. Like, if you love a classic musical, this is a good new musical for you to dip your toes into. I also said if you hate musicals, like, this will affirm everything you believe about musicals, and it is not for you.
You'll never see a musical again.
No, you'll be like, I was right. Musicals are corny and cheesy and bad. And, like, it really just depends. I had a wonderful time at Boop. I'm going to shout out today Why Look Around the Corner from Boop. Like, just the sweetest song.
They recently did this on the Today Show because as we're recording, it's like the Sunday after the Tony Awards, and the entire week the Today Show has been doing like Best of Broadway. So she sang
Where I Want to Be. She did Where I Want to Be.
She sang Where I Want to Be, but is this the song I'm thinking of? Is Why Look Around the Corner the final song, right?
They do it as the finale. They do it like, what? Yeah, after during the bows. So they did do, you're right. No, they
didn't do this. They did the color My World.
Yes, they did Color My World. Yes.
I
the
thought
finale,
it was that
like after they all bow, they sing a little bit of Why Look Around the Corner, like to close it off.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah,
but you can see a bit of Boop on the Today Show. It's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I watched it the other day. That's the scene when like my two favorite side characters like change their outfits to color. The director and the director's assistant, whoever.
Yeah, those guys. When Eric Bergen comes out in his like prison outfit.
He's 5, 6, 7,
5, 6, 7, 8. Did you see?
I was gonna say. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you see an interview with him where he says a princess track for Eric Bergen? He goes to the back of the house and watches every night the parts that he's not in because he just like loves the show so much.
You know why? Because he's working that tech crew and he's got to make sure that the spotlight is hitting where it needs to be. That's why he's at the back.
Exactly,
of the house.
Because the next time there is like a tribute to Stephen Sondheim on Zoom, he's got to be there getting Judith Light her sound working. You know, Adrienne Warren was in the bathtub.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And then all the bubbles were gone by the time we got to her.
Didn't he get, like, a special something for that? I swear he got, like, a special something. It wasn't, like, a Tony Award, but it was a special
Judith, I'm calling you.
I don't know what it was. Yeah, so good. Anyway. I want to go back and watch that. No, I was going to say before we move on to my obsession, it felt like David Foster, like, did his homework here, which I appreciate. It seemed like, I don't know what his relationship is to musicals prior to this. I don't know if he's, like, a lover, if he's never seen one, if he's an occasional viewer.
I'm fascinated he's never written one before. That's crazy, honestly.
It seemed like he really, like, put in the time to make sure that this sounded the way that they wanted it to sound. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, like, having, what's his name, who played Dwayne, be able to really sing those Bublé-esque songs so well.
Voice.
Like, was so helpful, I think, to David Foster in this situation. Did he do it out of town, too? Do you know?
I believe so, yes. Yes. Yeah. I also listened to Jasmine Amy Rogers on the Drama podcast recently, and she said that she like loves Ainsley Melham, like that they love each other so much.
She also said in the Today Show performance, because they asked her something about like what's the greatest part of like being on Broadway, and she was like, all of these people. She's like, these people are my family. And I'm like, then Jasmine, why didn't you show us them in the vlogs?
She's tired. I also want to say I've been talking so much about David Foster. He only wrote the music. Susan Birkenhead wrote the lyrics, and some of those lyrics, the girl I thought I knew, turns out somebody drew her. What gets better than that? What gets better than that?
David Yazbek and Eric Della Penna. We're only giving the one name.
like your pen, David's Susan Birkenhead. Your pen, Susan Birkenhead. Like you did that. The girl I thought I knew, turns out somebody drew her. Which is sort of hard to wrap your head around. Like, I love it. Anyway, that's my obsession. Tara, what's your obsession this week?
My obsession this week is recently the MCC Theater miscast The Studio Sessions came out, and I was under the impression that these were just going to be like live performances.
I also thought this.
Absolutely not. These people went into the recording studio. The only one that is not is obviously Take Me or Leave Me is live because Gavin Creel and Aaron Tveit. But because as everybody knows, I have talked about Who I'd Be that Rachel Zegler has sung on miscast, like literally every other opportunity I get to talk about this song, I will take it. So when I messaged you, I was like, it's been put back on YouTube, I'm going to download it. And you were like, but the album's coming out. It sounds different because she's in the studio versus live.
Which one's better? Which one do you like better?
The live is better.
The live.
She sounds a little too like, not auto-tuned, but just a little too clean.
Like clean.
I like when things sound a little dirtier. For these things, because they all have such like incredible voices that I like the live element.
I also thought it was going to be the live versions on the album, so I
was truly shocked when I pressed play on this, and I'd never seen the one that I'm about to talk about. I'd never seen this performance before, so listening to it on the cast recording, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And my obsession this week is Eva Noblezada singing Go the Distance. This is a wonderful musical theater song from the movie Hercules, which I believe this is about to play in London this summer, this
Hercules?
fall. Yeah, maybe. It's on the new Disney Treasure. Like, the new Disney cruise ship is playing Hercules. So Hercules is like the next Disney theatrical. I don't know if it will ever come to New York, when it will come to New York. They did that like random Hercules at the Delacorte in, what year was that? That was like
off
a couple
Broadway,
years ago.
2019, so pre-pandemic, and it starred Jelani Aladdin, obviously. Mm-hmm. Was Krista Rodriguez in this? Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Was she Meg?
She was Meg. So in the West End, it's scheduled to open summer 2025 at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. Casey Nicholaw.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about Casey Nicholaw because so many of the shows that we saw were like Casey Nicholaw-esque, but not quite. I was thinking like Death Becomes Her, even like Boop, like.
Yeah, but Boop is so Jerry Mitchell.
Boop is so Jerry Mitchell, but it has so much tap dancing, which is so Casey Nicholaw to me.
Yes. Anyway, I love this. I love this song generally, but I love Eva on this song. I still have not gone back to watch her live performance because now I'm like, what if it's not as good as the cast recording? But like, it's fine. I'll get there. There's like a moment that she does something on the word star that I can't even like describe for you, but it's a certain kind of riff. I love how she sounds on this, and the entire album is really good. Some other highlights, obviously, Let Me Be Your Star with Jeremy Jordan and Jonathan Groff. The Human Heart with
nominated
Leslie
against
Odom Jr.
each other at the Tonys this year.
You know what?
You might know what happened already. You probably know what happened between them.
You probably know what happened already. Yes, exactly.
Well, we don't. We have no idea.
We don't know, but you definitely know. The Human Heart with Leslie Odom Jr. and his wife Nicolette Robinson, but the actual like craziest vocal performance on this entire album is Heather Headley singing Endless Night. It is so good. But I didn't choose it today. My choice is Go the Distance. So that is my obsession of the week. That is our thoughts on Dead Outlaw. And that's the end of this episode. So if you want to listen to any of our other episodes, you can do that by subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment.
And you can follow us on Instagram at Off2BWay Podcast with the number 2, and on TikTok at Off2Broadway. I am usually on the TikTok. Leave me a comment. I love to chat.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.